Imagine a woman so dangerous that even the mightiest of biblical heroes trembled at her name. A woman whose cunning and ruthlessness changed the course of history. Now, multiply that by 6. Welcome to the shadows of Scripture, where we uncover the stories that your Sunday school teacher never dared to tell. These are the femmes fatales of the good book, women who wielded seduction like a weapon and turned betrayal into an art form. But here's the twist. One of these women's actions was so shocking, so unprecedented, that God himself intervened with deadly consequences. Can you guess which one? As we journey through these dark tales, ask yourself, in a world where women were often powerless, were these deadly deeds acts of evil, or desperate gambits for survival and influence? From a temptress who brought down the strongest man in history, to a queen who nearly exterminated an entire royal bloodline, these stories will challenge everything you thought you knew about biblical heroines. So, steel your nerves and open your mind. We're about to meet the 6 deadliest women in the Bible, and trust me, their untold stories are not for the faint of heart. Let's begin with a name that has become synonymous with betrayal and seduction. A woman who brought a legendary hero to his knees with nothing but her wits and her charms. 1. Delilah, the temptress who brought down a hero. We all know the story of Samson and Delilah, but have we truly considered the depth of Delilah's cunning? Samson, the man blessed with superhuman strength, fell victim to her charms and manipulation. In Judges 16, we read how the Philistines approached Delilah, offering her a fortune to discover the secret of Samson's strength. What followed was a masterclass in manipulation. 3 times she asked Samson for the secret, and 3 times he lied. But Delilah persisted, wearing down his resolve with a combination of seduction and emotional manipulation. "How can you say I love you when you won't confide in me?" she demanded. Judges 16:15. It's a question that resonates even today, doesn't it? How many of us have used love as a weapon, a tool to get what we want? Finally, Samson revealed that his strength lay in his uncut hair. Delilah, seizing her opportunity, had him fall asleep on her lap and called for a man to shave off his 7 braids. With this act, Samson's strength left him, and he was captured by the Philistines. But let's pause for a moment. Was Delilah truly evil, or was she a woman using the only power available to her in a male-dominated society? She was, after all, working for her people, the Philistines. In her eyes, was she not a patriot, bringing down an enemy of her nation? Delilah's story serves as a stark reminder of the power of persuasion and the danger of misplaced trust. It also raises questions about loyalty and patriotism. In the grand scheme of things, was Delilah's betrayal any worse than the acts of violence Samson had committed against her people? 2. Jezebel, the queen who defied a prophet. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most notorious women in the Bible, Jezebel. Her name has become synonymous with wickedness, but is that reputation entirely deserved? Jezebel was a Phoenician princess who became Queen of Israel through her marriage to King Ahab. From the moment she stepped foot in Israel, she was an outsider, bringing with her the worship of Baal and Asherah. This put her in direct conflict with the prophets of Yahweh, particularly Elijah. In 1 Kings 18, we see the extent of Jezebel's influence. She had many of the Lord's prophets killed, while supporting hundreds of prophets of Baal and Asherah. When Elijah challenged and defeated the prophets of Baal in a dramatic showdown on Mount Carmel, Jezebel's response was swift and terrifying. She sent a message to Elijah. "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them." 1 Kings 19:2. This threat was so potent that Elijah, who had just called down fire from heaven, fled in fear for his life. Think about that for a moment. What kind of woman could strike such fear into the heart of one of the Bible's most powerful prophets? But Jezebel's deadliest act came in the story of Naboth's vineyard, to 1 Kings 21. When her husband Ahab was sulking because Naboth refused to sell him his vineyard, Jezebel took matters into her own hands. She wrote letters in Ahab's name, sealed them with his seal, and had Naboth falsely accused and stoned to death. With Naboth out of the way, Ahab could take possession of the vineyard. This act of murder through false accusation showcases Jezebel's cunning and her absolute disregard for the laws and customs of Israel. She was a foreign queen who refused to assimilate, instead imposing her will and her gods on the kingdom. But here's a question to ponder. Was Jezebel simply staying true to her upbringing and her beliefs? In a different context, might her fierce loyalty to her faith and her determination to shape the kingdom according to her vision be seen as admirable traits? Jezebel's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the clash of cultures. It also raises questions about religious tolerance and the lengths people will go to protect their beliefs. 3. Jael, the assassin with a tent peg. Now, let's move on to a woman whose deadly deed is often overlooked in biblical discussions. Jael. Her story is brief but shocking, a testament to the fact that in times of war, heroism and brutality often go hand in hand. The story of Jael is found in Judges 4 and 5. Israel was at war with the Canaanites led by Sisera. After a decisive battle, Sisera fled and sought refuge in the tent of Jael, whose husband was at peace with the Canaanites. Jael welcomed him, gave him milk to drink, and covered him with a blanket. But Jael had other plans. As Sisera slept, exhausted from the battle, Jael took a tent peg and a hammer. In one of the most graphic descriptions in the Bible, we're told, Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. Judges 4:21. This act of brutal assassination is celebrated in the Song of Deborah in Judges 5, where Jael is praised as most blessed of women. Judges 5:24. It's a stark reminder of the harsh realities of ancient warfare and the blurred lines between hospitality and betrayal. But let's take a moment to consider Jael's position. She was a woman caught between two warring parties. Her husband's clan was at peace with the Canaanites, but she chose to side with the Israelites. Was this an act of faith, of political expediency, or simply a woman seizing an opportunity to play a decisive role in the conflicts that shaped her world? Jael's story raises uncomfortable questions about the nature of heroism in times of war. Is an act of betrayal and murder justified if it serves a greater cause? How do we reconcile the celebration of such a violent act with our modern sensibilities? Moreover, Jael's story is a powerful reminder that in the Bible, God often uses unexpected individuals, including foreign women, to accomplish his purposes. It challenges our preconceptions about who can be an instrument of divine will. 4. Athaliah, the queen who almost destroyed a dynasty. As we continue our exploration of deadly women in the Bible, we come to a figure whose thirst for power led her to commit one of the most shocking acts in biblical history. Athaliah, the only woman to rule Judah as a queen regnant. Athaliah's story, found in 2 Kings 11 and 2 Chronicles 22-23, is a tale of political intrigue and ruthless ambition. She was the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel, and became Queen of Judah through her marriage to King Jehoram. When her son Ahaziah became king and was subsequently killed, Athaliah saw her chance to seize power for herself. Her actions were swift and merciless. As the Bible tells us, when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family. 2 Kings 11:1. Let that sink in for a moment. In her quest for power, Athaliah was willing to murder her own grandchildren. This wholesale slaughter of the royal family was not just a personal tragedy. It was a threat to the very promise of God. Remember, God had promised David that his line would continue forever. Athaliah's actions came perilously close to wiping out the Davidic line entirely. But as often happens in the Bible, God's plans are not so easily thwarted. Unknown to Athaliah, one young prince, Joash, was rescued and hidden away in the temple for 6 years. When Joash was 7, the high priest Jehoiada orchestrated a coup, revealing Joash and having Athaliah executed. Athaliah's reign and its violent end raised several profound questions. How does power corrupt? What drives a person to commit such heinous acts against their own family? And how thin is the line between political ambition and murderous tyranny? Moreover, Athaliah's story is a stark reminder of the collateral damage often left in the wake of power struggles. How many innocent lives were lost or forever changed by her actions. It's also worth noting that Athaliah, like her mother Jezebel, was a worshipper of Baal. During her reign, the worship of Baal flourished in Judah. This adds another layer to her story, the clash between different religious traditions and the political implications of religious affiliation. Athaliah's tale serves as a cautionary story about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the corrupting influence of power. It also highlights the belief in divine providence, that even in the darkest times when all seems lost, God's plans will ultimately prevail. 5. Herodias, the queen who demanded a prophet's head. As we move into the New Testament, we encounter another deadly woman whose actions had far-reaching consequences, Herodias, the woman behind the execution of John the Baptist. Herodias' story, found in Mark 6 and Matthew 14, is a tale of grudges, manipulation, and the abuse of power. She was originally married to Herod II, but left him to marry his half-brother, Herod Antipas. This union was considered unlawful by Jewish law, and John the Baptist was not shy about pointing this out. Mark 6:17-18 tells us, "For Herod himself had given orders to have John arrested, and he had him bound and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had been saying to Herod, 'It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife.' Herodias, furious at John's public condemnation, wanted him dead. But Herod, who feared John and considered him a holy man, resisted her demands. This is where Herodias' cunning comes into play. During Herod's birthday celebration, Herodias' daughter, often identified as Salome though not named in the Gospels, danced for Herod and his guests. Pleased with the performance, Herod made a rash vow. "Ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you." Mark 6:22. Herodias saw her opportunity. She instructed her daughter to ask for John the Baptist's head on a platter. Trapped by his own oath and unwilling to lose face in front of his guests, Herod complied. John was beheaded, and his head was presented to the girl who gave it to her mother. This grisly tale raises several disturbing questions. How far will someone go to silence their critics? What does it say about Herodias that she was willing to use her own daughter as a pawn in her deadly game? And what of Herod, who valued his pride and reputation more than the life of a man he considered holy? Herodias' story is a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred and the abuse of power. It also highlights the often overlooked influence that women could wield in patriarchal societies, working behind the scenes to shape events. Moreover, this event had significant repercussions. John the Baptist was revered as a prophet and had a large following. His execution likely contributed to the growing tension between the Jewish people and their rulers, setting the stage for the tumultuous events to come. 6. Sapphira, the woman struck dead for lying. Our final deadly woman takes us to the early days of the Christian Church. Sapphira's story, found in Acts 5, is perhaps the most chilling of all, because her death comes not at the hands of any human, but as a direct judgment from God. Sapphira and her husband Ananias were members of the early Christian community in Jerusalem. This community practiced a form of communal living, with members selling their property and laying the proceeds at the apostles' feet to be distributed as needed. Ananias and Sapphira sold a piece of property, but decided to keep back part of the money for themselves, bringing only a portion to the apostles. The issue wasn't that they kept some of the money. After all, Peter himself says, "Didn't it belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal?" Acts 5:4. The sin was in their deception, in pretending to give everything while secretly holding back. When confronted by Peter, Ananias fell down and died on the spot. About 3 hours later, Sapphira came in, unaware of what had happened to her husband. Peter asked her, "Tell me, is this the price you and Ananias got for the land?" Acts 5:8. This was Sapphira's moment of truth, her chance to come clean. Instead, she chose to maintain the lie, saying, "Yes, that is the price." Peter's response is chilling. How could you conspire to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the feet of the men who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also. Acts 5:9. At that moment, Sapphira fell down and died, just as her husband had. This story raises profound questions about honesty, integrity, and the seriousness with which God views deception within the community of believers. It's a stark reminder that while humans might be fooled, God sees the heart. But it also raises uncomfortable questions. Why was the punishment so severe? Was it because their action threatened the trust and unity of the fledgling church at a critical time? Or was it to set a precedent about the seriousness of lying to God? Sapphira's story is unique among our deadly women because she herself is the victim of her own deception. Her death serves as a warning about the deadly nature of dishonesty, especially within a community of faith. As our journey through the lives of these 6 deadly women comes to an end, we're left with a burning question. What do their stories mean for us today? How should we respond to these tales of cunning, betrayal, and deadly ambition? These women, Delilah, Jezebel, Jael, Athaliah, Herodias, and Sapphira, challenge us to look beyond the surface of biblical narratives. Their stories aren't simple morality tales, but complex accounts that force us to grapple with the harsh realities of power, survival, and human nature. These accounts remind us that the Bible isn't a sanitized collection of fables, It's a raw, unflinching look at humanity in all its glory and depravity. If these stories can surprise and unsettle us, perhaps we should approach all of Scripture with fresh eyes, ready to be challenged and transformed. Moreover, these women's tales highlight the timeless struggle against societal constraints and the lengths people will go to gain or maintain power. They prompt us to examine our own hearts. What would we do in similar circumstances? How do we use the power and influence we have? Thank you for joining us on this journey through some of the Bible's most controversial and misunderstood narratives. If you've enjoyed this exploration, don't miss out on our next video appearing on your screen right now. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking the deeper truths hidden within the pages of this ancient and ever-relevant book. Blessings to you and your family.